What do you mean too nice? Yes, you can be too nice. Watch today's video where I give you 5 signs that maybe you are being too nice. Guys, if you're new around here, my name is Diana Garcia. I'm a licensed mental health counselor in Florida, owner of a private practice called Nurturing Minds Counseling. All right, so let's jump into today's video. Okay, first sign, you always say yes, no matter what. That's the default mode is yes. Someone asks you a request, whether it's at work, whether it's a friend, whether it's a family member, your automatic default is yes. Even though you might want to say no, maybe you don't want to do the request, or maybe you just don't have time or energy or just internal resources to say yes, but it's so difficult for you to say no, so the automatic default is to say yes. So that's a first sign that maybe you're being too nice and it might be costing you. Is saying no difficult for you? Let me know in the comments below if no is not in your vocabulary. Second sign, and this is kind of related to the first sign, is that you avoid any type of conflict. So it's not just saying yes, right? So that was the first sign we talked about, but it's actually really avoiding any type of conflict. So maybe you don't speak up when you know you want to, or when you disagree with someone, whether, again, that could be at work or at home in a romantic relationship or with a family member, a friend. Honestly, it could also be at like a restaurant or when you're out. Maybe you want to say something to a salesperson, but you avoid that discomfort. So being too nice might be that you won't say anything. You won't express how you're feeling in order to avoid that uncomfortable feeling that shows up when someone might be upset with you or you're having a disagreement with someone. Again, sometimes it's not really a big deal, but over time, if that's the pattern, it might be costing you too much, right? Because this kind of key insight is that in our effort to avoid conflict, all we're doing is creating more conflict, especially in these relationships that are ongoing. Maybe it's not a big deal with, someone you see at a store, the salesperson, but maybe if you keep avoiding conflict in your relationship with your partner, that's going to eventually show up, and it's going to just spiral into, at one point, just having this all-encompassing conversation about everything that you haven't talked about because you've been avoiding conflict. Okay, third sign that you're being too nice. You don't ask for help. So a common misconception that I see with a lot of my clients who really identify as people pleasers is that they don't want to burden anyone, they don't want to bother other people, so they'll just take it on themselves and they won't ask for help, which, again, maybe one time it's not a big deal, but over time of this pattern of taking everything on, not asking for help because you might be concerned of other people's feelings, but at the expense of your own feelings, that you end up taking on too much. You end up doing too much to the point that you end up exhausted. So that might be a sign that you're being too nice, that you don't want to ask for help. And maybe it's not even related to being too nice. There might be other stories or feelings involved here. But generally, I see this kind of grouped in together with people who struggle with some of these other things. Fourth sign, you feel responsible for other people's feelings. Now, this might be hard to believe, but you are not responsible for someone else's feelings. Clearly, how we engage with other people, yes, can impact other people, and vice versa. The way people engage with us impacts how we engage, but at the end of the day, each person is responsible how they engage or react to how you engage, right? We're all responsible with what we do, what we take in, what we do with our hands and feet, kind of how we assess a situation, what we ultimately do when we have an uncomfortable feeling. So it's really kind of taking ownership. Just like you're responsible for your feelings, someone else is responsible for their feelings. You don't have to take on that responsibility. I think I find that a lot of times, especially with people that are really close to us, that we sometimes can kind of default to feeling responsible for them, which, and responsible for their feelings, so that we really maybe do or say things or don't do or say things because we feel like, oh gosh, it's our responsibility to make sure they're feeling a certain way, typically that they're feeling okay, like kind of pleasant feelings, and we have to make sure that they don't feel uncomfortable or they don't get angry or irritated. Again, not your responsibility. Hard to imagine, but it isn't. Fifth sign that you're being too nice, it's you always say, I'm sorry, right? Default mode, again, like saying yes, but it's like, oh, I'm sorry. Your emails are like, oh, I'm sorry I didn't respond. Oh, I'm sorry I didn't get back to you. Oh, you're apologizing for things that aren't even your fault, right? So again, it might be polite, it might feel like not a big deal, but it's just part of you feeling like you're always responsible. You always have to take accountability. You always, are the one on top of everything, and so if something falls through the cracks, you feel automatically responsible. So if you're constantly finding yourself saying I'm sorry, that especially for things that are not your responsibility or not your fault, regardless of the setting, whether it's at work, whether it's at home, whether it's across the board, that might be a sign that you're being too nice. So 5 signs that you're being too nice. Subscribe to my channel where I'll be sharing 2 other videos related to being too nice, ways it's backfiring on you, as well as some tips to help you stop being so nice. All right, guys, I hope this was helpful. And as always, I encourage you to continue nurturing your mind, body, and soul.